welcome back to another episode of Expedition Marriage.
I love you.
I love you too. That was my beautiful bride, Jamie. I am Chris, and we are here to bring you another episode. And we're going to continue to talk about things that help to improve your marriage, help to bring some wisdom, God's principles, and training into it, teaching into it, and so that way you can live a life, a marriage that's going to bring you more joy, that you're going to have joy in the journey, which is why we say that, to enjoy the journey.
That's right.
All right, so let's dig into this little. We have an enemy. You have an enemy. Your marriage has an enemy. Okay, if whether you want to believe
Great start.
Yeah. Hey, great news today. Your marriage has an enemy.
You are under attack.
You are under attack, whether you choose to believe it or not. That's one of those things. I mean, I don't want to, like, we did see a movie. They're not paying us or this, but they could if they wanted to. So we saw Nefarious, and that was actually one of the messages behind that is this idea that we have forgotten. The enemy has made himself.
He's so sly.
Yeah,
so sly.
So like that he's no longer in play, and and the one of the characters is like, well, I don't believe it. It's like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to believe. It's just kind of like I've thought in the past. You don't have to believe gravity.
That's right.
Yeah, you step off a high height,
but you're affected by it.
You'll be affected by it in an adverse way, and such as. Right. So since we have this enemy and we are affected, we need to be aware. We need to be on guard of that, because the 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." Now, not sure if how familiar you are with roaring lions. I mean, we do have some listeners from international countries, and thank you. Thank you for listening. But for most of us, probably not familiar with it. So we'll give a quick little rundown on that. The male lion doesn't really do a lot of the hunting. It's
shocker.
I know, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nice. The female, I mean, it's a group effort. It's a group effort. And the lionesses, they do. So if they find a group of animals, they don't want to try to go, look, no one wants to try to take on antelope head on. Because just even at their worst freaking out, then someone's going to get hoved and stepped on, and you don't know what might happen. So it's easier to get after the ones that are on their own. Yeah. And here's a fallacy. People will say, well, they just go after like the wounded or the weak, but that's easy. No, that's a fallacy. So they will get them because they tend to be the ones easier to isolate, the young, right? But the point is just to isolate. Is to take them away from the crowd. So the lion, the male lion, will roar to intimidate, will roar and to distract. Scare and distract, and to try to get the prey to run away, to disperse away from the roar and into the hands of the lionesses, who would then separate and then isolate. And then once you're isolated, you're easy pickings.
Yeah. Age-old tactic of the enemy is to divide and conquer, because we're much easier prey if we're on our own. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is about creating oneness in your marriage, because you are now two who have become one. Yeah. Yes, we are. And so we want to, because since we are easier to pick off when we're isolated, then there's a lot of other things that we're weak in. In fact, sometimes just getting us isolated is enough. Right. Because we lose our power, we lose our resources, we lose access to our resources, we lose access to being a resource to somebody else, our spouse, right? And so, and that's not God's plan. God's about unity. Yeah. Right? God's, relationships, community, unity.
Love others as I've loved you. You got to be in community for that. Yeah. You can't just, I love you from afar. No, that doesn't work. So then let's look at Matthew 19:6. Because when we're talking about marriage, so they are no longer two, but one flesh. Whatever, therefore, God has joined together, let not man separate. So here, once we get married, we're not two flesh anymore. We're becoming one. It's a process. Right. We're working on it, but that's a direction we should be working towards.
That's right. And one of the things that the enemy can do to also get us isolated is, like you were saying with the lion, how he roars, he's behind. It is a distraction. He will use a distraction
Yeah.
to isolate us. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things. We live in a very distracted society, and we are now at a point where we are bringing these distractions into our home.
We're welcoming them into our homes.
That's right. That's right. And I think we can all agree, like, our cell phones, this little piece of equipment of technology is wreaking havoc. It's creating addictions. It's leading to adultery. It's leading to division and disunity in marriages.
Yeah.
And it's just sucking up our time.
Yeah. Even at best, it's sucking up time. It's even at best when you're scrolling through that thing, there's just, it puts a wall between the two of us. And it's like, well, I can't compete with that.
Right.
And there's a part of me that kind of like doesn't want to compete with that. I don't want to have to fight for your attention over a little piece of metal.
Right. And it's giving us fake substitutes of the beautiful things God designed us to have.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you can have friends that are online, but your online friends, it's not the same as when you're in real life doing life with people.
Absolutely.
And there are so many people who have all these online friends, and they're so social on social media that they're now so drained for real relationships. And I don't need to go to church because I can watch it online. I don't need to go out with my friends necessarily because I've been talking all day, but you kind of haven't really. And then even with home, you have this gift of a person living side by side with you.
Right.
And so often you will end up sitting on the couch, both of your heads down, looking into your phones.
Or going out on dates. And they're both, I mean, we've seen this so many times.
Yeah.
Both people are on there, you're just looking down at their phones, or maybe even whole families are just staring down on their phones. And I know we'll sometimes like it's something where we have to address at that time, but we really try to be conscious about limiting that, right? Because you got to limit the distractions. You got to be aware. You got to be intentional about trying to weed those out and not let them just because they slowly move in. It's not like overnight, because then that would be a problem. But they slowly moved in, and now you got to like start to pull those weeds out.
Distractions create divisions. Our jobs can be distractions. Our hobbies can be distractions, and none of these things are bad in and of themselves, but we have to maintain control over them.
Yeah.
We have to make sure we're not sacrificing our families and our marriages on the altar of social media, of our jobs, of our hobbies, of our free time, any of those things, because I guarantee you the enemy will always use distractions in your life to divide and conquer you, and it's working.
Oh, yeah.
It's working for him. And we don't want to tag team with him in this.
No, you don't want to be played. Don't be played by the enemy, right? And we want to, work towards creating that oneness, not to be complicit in division and setting that up. And I just want to throw this out. I don't know, because it's on my mind. When I read that verse about the devil is prowling around, people are like, this is a lowercase D. It's a term for an enemy. It's a term for the enemies of God, the demons, if you would. There's not just one. So here's
this is in the spiritual realm.
This is there's a spiritual battle going on, and there's not just one out there. There's more than one out there. So it's not just one. Okay, so he's moved off of our family and moved on to another family. No, there's more than enough to go around.
Yeah, that's
more
right.
Than enough to go around.
That's right.
All right. So how can we else work towards creating unity?
Well, communication.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a given, but oneness in your marriage, it's going to come from face-to-face time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel connected and united with you if your head is down and I'm looking and talking into your ear and not your face. I want that face-to-face connection.
Sure.
That's what we're made for.
Or from just yelling across the house or talking in different rooms and things like that. And then all of a sudden, well, why are you yelling at me? Well, I'm across the house. I'm just, I'm not raising my voice. I'm just trying to project, but it comes across as yelling.
Right. And then you have all those mirror neurons when you get face-to-face, you pick up on one another's emotions and their sadness and their joys, and you're experiencing that relationship and what they're talking about. It's coming to life, and we need that face-to-face time where we're hearing one another's feelings and thoughts, all their concerns and fears and their dreams and what's going on. Those are times of connection. And we've got to have that sit down, talk, face-to-face communication time, because if you can't talk to your spouse, you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel isolated. And a lack of communication 100% of the time equals isolation and disconnection.
Yeah. Ouch. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's hard to be connected when you're disconnected.
Right.
And we've actually, and there's some, I want to say innocuous, and sometimes, we're not being intentional about about some of these things. So we're not necessarily talking about these intentional ways that we might be doing that. A lot of this you were mentioning is just even being on devices, or not being intentional to get face to face, not being intentional to actually pay someone attention while they're talking to us, versus trying to just complete our task and multitask. And so they're just a part of what we're doing instead of giving them some focus.
Well, the enemy masquerades as an angel of light. He masquerades like if he came at us like the villain that he is, we would see him. We would identify it. But no, he comes along and it's like, oh, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. You guys are running in different directions. You're on your phone. You're talking with your friends, whatever
you're getting lots of stuff done at the same time.
Right. You're multitasking. No, it's creating division. And so he's good at what he does and he's cunning, and we need to be intentional.
Right. Well, and and we've talked about before this idea of being safe for each other. And we've had clients who just mishear that term. So they're like, I've never raised my hand. And yes, no. And that's not what we mean. And certainly don't ever raise hands and things like that. But we're just talking about, like, if I were to come up to Jamie and I were to say, hey, look, there's something on my mind I want to talk about. And she's busy doing something else and doesn't lift her head up and start talking to me about it, then the messaging to me is, you know what, that's just not safe for me to
because I'm displaying that I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. You're not important enough to me.
It's not time for me to be vulnerable with her.
Yeah.
And so this time will pass. Well, oh, you know what, never mind. We could talk about it later. And who knows if later comes.
Yeah, because that instant eroded the relationship. It eroded our connection. And then you end up with a spouse I can't even share with them because, one, they don't care. It doesn't matter. And
I've tried to share with you in the past.
Yes. Yeah. So there's
I've tried to tell you this stuff and you're not. Yeah.
So we need to be communicating. We have to have that face-to-face
That was a word for somebody. Somebody just went, oh, I've heard that.
Yes, it's so true. And it happens. And another way to create that oneness in your marriage is physical intimacy.
Yes.
And we need to be holding hands. We need to be hugging. We need to be sitting, touching shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
All those
affectionate
things.
Touch.
Yeah.
There's studies, multiple studies out there that talk about the amount of affectionate touches that we need from each other just to be emotionally healthy, just to maintain emotional health, which is about 12.
Right.
Just about 12. We were created as relational beings. We're created with touch. That was one of the most powerful things about the stories of Jesus, is he touched the people who hadn't been touched for years. Like the bleeding woman hadn't been touched by anybody for 12 years because of laws and stuff like that. Also, they'd be unclean.
And lepers.
Lepers, he would touch these people whom the world would not touch.
Yeah.
And the amount of transformation that was. So we need to be touching each other, at least our spouse, even if you're not physical touch. It's okay.
Right.
That doesn't have to be your primary love language, but it shouldn't be your aversion to your spouse. Because unfortunately, and this might be harsh, unfortunately, some of you who are adverse to physical touch with your spouse are very high physical touch with your children.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there's, obviously not getting into all of that. There are some very valid reasons why that may happen. And that's kind of what I want to touch on a little bit here, because also physical intimacy involves sex.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
And there is no more full way to be fully known by your spouse than to have sex with them.
Yeah.
Like you are at your most vulnerable. And those are moments where you can bond so much. You are releasing chemicals that are bonding agents. Sex was designed to be this beautiful thing. And it's not that, that is part of that flesh two becoming one in that physical fashion, but it's never two becoming one plus pornography. And even this plus trauma, past trauma. Because that is one of those things that will make you get affection from your kids, but not from your spouse.
Yeah.
And trauma can be a real issue in marriages. And even though it's something that may not be your fault at all, we do have we should have a desire to fix it, to correct it, to seek out the help. There are trauma therapists. There are things you can do to heal and overcome trauma.
Absolutely.
God can redeem your past. And if you do not work to overcome those things that trigger you in marriage, that are dividing you, whether it be sexually or communication-wise, or any kind of division in your marriage, I mean, the enemy's going to use that to divide you.
Yeah, you've been studied.
Yes. And so God wants that redeemed, and he wants that part healed. And so physical intimacy, that is a big, beautiful part of marriage and of oneness.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's something that only the marriage covenant should be sharing.
That's right. Pornography has no room it has no room in the lives of anybody. It devalues it. There's so much wrong with pornography.
Human trafficking is huge. If anyone, this is a stirring word. Anybody who's against slavery, when has an issue with slavery in the past, should be upset that there's more slaves now and human trafficking than there ever have been in history.
Yeah. That's right. It's a horrible thing. And again, with the enemy, the cunningness of the enemy, that has nothing to do with porn. Porn is just about pleasure.
No.
Porn is necessary. It's not that these women enjoy this. No, it's deceptive, and it will steal from your marriage. Physically, your wife, your husband are all you need.
Yep.
That's it. That's the design. So you've got to get rid of porn. You've got to deal with past traumas and work through these things so you don't get divided.
Yeah.
And also, here's another one. I think this is kind of big in marriages, is if you want oneness, you have to share responsibilities. You cannot expect to be one. You cannot expect to be united as a couple if you're putting the workload entirely on one spouse.
Yeah.
If one spouse, it's one thing if you've agreed, hey, I keep the home, you work,
but that's the agreement.
That's the agreement. But you have
a shared agreement.
If you have children, they're both of your children's.
Yes.
If you have a home, it is both of your homes. You get to decide who does what in that, but you cannot just say, you know what, I make the paycheck and you do this, or have the expectations the other way. You have to be able to share the burdens, the running of the house, the raising of the kids, and all that, because isolation, if you feel all alone in doing those things because everything's on your shoulders and you are overwhelmed from that, that's going to erode any form of oneness.
Resentment's going to build. You're just and then that's going to become a wedge in between the relationship. It's going to slowly start to atrophy, and you're probably not communicating about it, because if you may have tried in the past, but that turned into conflict and turned into fights and no resolutions, and there's no appreciation, no understanding, no empathy.
Yeah, and one person will just settle, give up hope, settle, and just build resentment upon resentment, and then a foot is out the door.
Yeah,
and that's what will happen. It's not supposed to be that way.
And dads, you made a good point. Dads, they're your kids too. Change a diaper.
Yeah.
Change.
Yeah.
If you don't know how, you don't feel comfortable, because look, a lot of men, fear of failure is huge in men. They won't say it because they're afraid to admit that. But so I don't know if I'll do it right, or I might get poop all over the place and stuff like that. Okay, well then put down a larger pad. Put down if you need to put down a sheet, some sheeting.
Yeah, but get in there and help.
But get in there, learn how to do it. We get good at what we practice. Practice it. Get good at it. Get involved and engage with your kids. Your kids need you. They need you to be bonding with them at early ages, and not just when they're a little more fun.
Yeah.
And
the world needs dads now more than ever.
Absolutely. And moms, on that note, moms, we've got 3 girls in November, and I tried to do the hair.
You could do a mean ponytail, man. You would slick that back.
Tight. I might as well have been that dad with the vacuum cleaner. Just pulled it back.
But you did hair.
Right.
You did hair.
But, that's the point. That's the point. Get involved. Have shared. Rotate. Flexibility. Step in. Hey, I'll take care of this for now.
Yeah.
Or what's funny is Jamie used to love mowing the lawn because she loved the straight lines. So it's just discuss this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not.
And do what works for your family. There's
your family.
There's no fairness about this. There's no anything. But what you want is the connection of talking about it and working on it together and figuring out those roles, and also, when the roles get mixed up for whatever reason, fill in for one another.
Yeah.
Be a resource and help one another. And so
it looks like
what
you're busy. Let me step in and I'll do this. Even though it's not my job,
right.
I can be a resource. I can help.
That's right. And so lastly, what you need for oneness is you got to share your goals and dreams together. And Amos 3:3 talks about this. Do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? Well, the answer is no. No, you have to know where you're going. Sure. You can't just be two individuals just walking along,
just ambling along,
and expecting to end up together in the same place. You need that GPS. You need that destination. You need to know the direction that you're heading in. And what do you want for your family? What are your goals financially? And just as a couple, what are you heading towards? And be walking together in that, because you're in a joint life now. Yeah. And you have to have goals that are for your marriage. You have to have a purpose for your marriage, and you have to be two people who are walking in one direction.
Yeah. How does one person take two paths?
Right. And the last one, this is a big one, and it is a general one as believers. But if you want oneness in your marriage, you have got to die to yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to get rid of your selfishness. And Galatians 5:24 says, those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Once you became a believer, it was no longer about you. This pursuit of happiness is crazy. It's all about, what do I deserve? What do I get? What makes me happy? And what are you doing that's wrong that you should be doing that's better? It's my
turn.
Yeah, there's so much pride in the way we're tempted to live, and we need to just be dying to ourselves.
Absolutely. And well, even just as believers, let's take it a step further, because Jesus said in Luke 23, and now this is Jesus saying this, right? And he said to all, if anyone would come after me, so if you want to be a believer, right? If you're saying I'm a believer, if you're saying I'm a follower of Christ, so you're coming after him, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me.
Yeah.
Let him deny himself and then take up his cross daily.
Every single day.
Yeah. What do you need to die? And taking up a cross is death.
Yeah.
Right? It's a proclamation of a painful death that I'm willing to undergo.
Yeah, we are supposed to be sacrificing for one another and sacrificing for the gospel.
Yeah, die to ourselves daily. So what today do you need to die to? What is there selfishness you need to die to today? Is there maybe some impatience that you need to die to today? What do you need to die to yourself today and deny, so that way you can be a better follower of Christ? That's the idea, and then be a better spouse as a result.
Yeah. When you're a better follower of Christ, you are a better spouse. And when two of you are better followers of Christ, you have a better connected, unified marriage. Yeah. And so going back to where we started, Matthew 19:6, the beginning of that is, you are no longer two. You are one.
Yeah.
You are one. And so this isn't about what's good for me, what's good for you. It's what's good for us. What's good for the gospel. And that's what our marriage needs to be. Yes, that's what our marriage needs to be about, because you are made to be unified. You are two that have become one. And that is stuff like we love to help you with going on a journey like that, to that oneness. And so if you don't know this already, you can find us at expeditionmarriage.org. On our website, we have all kinds of information for you. We write articles. We have great content on social media. We have online courses for reconnecting, overcoming conflict, a whole bunch of things. We do online counseling, and we even do weekend reboot marriage intensives. And so if you want any information about any of that stuff to take that next step in your marriage, to get to one step closer to that oneness, head over to expeditionmarriage.org and we will help you. Because really, we don't want you to let anything tear apart what God has joined together in the two of you.
Right.
So if we can help you with that, let us know, because we are here to help you.
Enjoy the journey.